So yeah, hello again to everybody. My name is Boris and I work for Synopsys as the senior security engineer or sales engineer or however. I started my career path as somebody who was interested in electronics, right? And from there I went to development because the whole programming interested me. However, as I was then moving more into the security field, I was really interested in the dark arts, and therefore I joined sales in the end. So, nah, just a joke on the side, but yeah, now I work for Synopsys and I try to discuss with customers we have how to actually do application security without them impacting their development velocity, because we know today are fast changing times. And then many times when I do talk with customers, they always ask, how do I increase this velocity? How can I develop software faster and still get the security piece right? Right. However, then we always step to the point of how can more tools help me increasing my velocity, right? So just yesterday at another talk in Israel, they asked me, so why would adding more tools to my pipeline increase my velocity, right? Everybody thinks that it is about more tools creating more results creating more work creating less time, right? So, but it's not only about tools. It's also about how we use these tools, where we use these tools. And this is what I will try to bring forward today. Um, but to start with the solution, I first of all have to start with the problem. And where else to start with the problem than in the childhood, in this case, my childhood. And in one way, I'm quite happy that I lived through this evolution of technology in the past 25 years, where we had really fast growth, right? My technology in my childhood looked a little bit different than it's looking today. Mobility was written a little bit differently than we know it today. And also high resolution video games were a Commodore 64 in those times. We were still discussing memory in kilobytes and not as we are today, terabytes, something that is quite normal, right? So as we had technology back then, also malware back then was different. Malware writers were in those days visible, right? They did not want to tell you, hey, I'm hidden. They wanted to tell you, hey, I'm here. They wanted to be up in your face. They wanted to show you some cool stuff that they can do with your computer without you knowing. They wanted to also create sounds and such things from your computer that you did not even know that is possible. And the point of this was that the motivation was actually fame, right? Nobody in those days was writing malware for monetary beneficial. There were some attempts, right? The first ransomware is dating in the 80s, right? However, back then, the most motivation for malware is coming from the point of, hey, I know how to do something and I will show it to you, or I will abuse the governmental network just to download MP3s and such things, right? So it was still harmless. However, as our technology evolved, as everybody started to own a home computer more and more, as internet connection was more and more normal to have in your house, also the motivation for malware writers changed. They changed from this visible in your face point of view into this hidden criminal-like behavior, right? They started to encrypt their malware. They started to hide in the code itself. They wanted to have your computers running so that they could use them as zombie machine, attacking other machines in DDoS attacks, or spamming other people, right? So this was the motivation behind it, that they wanted to gain monetary benefit out of your computers that they infected. And when we are talking about those those motivations, they changed then also over time into hacktivism, where they had either other views than the companies and hacked companies like Sony or so to show the point of something being wrong, or politics, where, as we know, USA made some good advances in listening into people's lives for national security, as they claimed. So from that perspective, the malware in the world changed a lot. And as we hear today, most of the things that we are hearing are connected to ransomware, right? But if we think about how ransomware actually comes to the point of becoming somebody's tool of extortion, we have to think about how did the attacker actually come so far. And it all comes to the point of application security failure. The applications where the attacker could enter the network, could enter the device itself, was through a vulnerability in the software itself. And now, as we have a vast majority of interconnected devices, and I'm not talking only about PCs, I'm talking about cars, cameras, all IoT devices like smartwatches, earphones, and such things. Everything is interconnected. And if we then say that this whole infrastructure is our, let's say it like this, thing that we depend on, and we are talking then about smart governments also, then we have a big problem, right? And if I now put to those names also names of some, let's say it like this, quite known institutions, then you might ask, why am I showing you this, right? Well, the point of this slide is to show you that those were already attacked by malware in the beginning of 2000s, right? And then the question comes to the point, why didn't we prepare for this? How come that we are still having the same problems as we had in the past, even though we evolved so much, right? So we tried to see this part as acknowledging that our centerpiece of life is technology today, right? And we acknowledge that everything runs on software. However, we tend to miss the point of really taking care of this software, right? I don't know if this number is okay and when this was released, but I am still seeing the same point when I'm talking with people about application security. There is always more money invested in infrastructure and infrastructural security, like firewalls, gateways, and such things, as it is put into application security. And when there is some kind of a budget for application security, then the point is to just maybe push it through so that we have something, rather than to let's make it really correct. The problem is, as I feel, that we are still hanging on the old model of development. We are still thinking that our software is like it was in the past, right? But if we think about it, in the past, we did not use so much open source. In the past, we did not use network connections so much. We did not have many platforms to use or support. We had long development cycles, whereas we now try to compensate for the faster living software with DevOps, for example, right? So we went from developing in waterfall into the DevOps life cycle, right? But then again, we are missing security. We are missing the point who is responsible for all of this security talk. And many times we see that then everybody is talking about shift left, but then they're implementing this shift left wrong because they're just taking a tool or taking a bunch of tools, putting them on the developers' shoulders and say, we're done with application security. We did everything that we should do. In my opinion, this is the wrong point because the developers are not there to solve the security mysteries of the code because they are many times also not equipped for it. They don't have the knowledge many times to do this. They're paid to solve the mysteries of life. They're paid to solve functionality points that make the application work faster, better, nicer, more usability, and so on. However, if you want to have them also focused on security, you need to help them. You need to give them the knowledge, but also the right tools. Because today's software development is more of everything. It's more networks, it's more code, it's more interconnection, it's more platforms, it's faster. You have for sure 2-week or 1-week release cycles. You have Scrum, you have every nice things that you do, but many times security comes last at the plate. Now, of course, we want to come to this picture, right? That we want to show that security is also important to us, and we want to move out of this shift left wrong way and to shift to everywhere so that security is implemented in every step of our development and everything. But we have to also start with management acknowledging that security is an important part of our application development. So we at Synopsys, with our research team, we do also regular checks and researches. And in this research, we checked how do applications on app stores do, right? We took 3,300 and something applications, downloaded them from the App Store, and checked them with our binary scanner to see if there are any vulnerabilities. We saw that there are vulnerabilities, and what we saw even further is that out of the vulnerabilities found, 94 of them were even fixable. So now the question appears, how come that the released software in a Play Store that is normal, right, has vulnerabilities that the attacker could even easily misuse in order to breach your device? And now imagine that this device is a part of a corporate network. Then, of course, the attacker has access to your most precious. In our research team, we also do regular checks on how open source security is used in software projects. And here we saw out of the 1,546 code bases we checked out, that open source usage is growing year by year, right? Which is good. Open source gives you the edge. It gives you faster development. You don't have develop warm water all the time, and you can focus on your main points. So everything okay. We support open source. This is why we are here, right? However, we have seen that the percentage of the vulnerabilities in those code bases is growing year by year also. So this means that software is using open source that is vulnerable and is implementing vulnerable open source components, which means that their software is therefore posing a security risk. We have seen also that the license risks are going lower, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I like it when companies also take care of the license compliance risks that open source components bring with, and clear that there are no obligations that they don't fulfill. So this is good. However, I worry about the rising security risks in applications through open source components. And then the question comes, is it because of lack of the budget for security? Is it lack of interest or even lack of pressure, right? Now, I work many times with OSS components. I'm the SCA expert or one of the SCA experts at Synopsys, and therefore many times I'm called in when the customer wants to solve their open source problems. And I many times discuss this point that a vulnerability in open source components can be implemented many years, days before it gets discovered, right? Open source vulnerabilities mostly get discovered by researchers. The researchers will post these vulnerabilities after a time, of course, to the vulnerability database. And after this happens, an exploit will be published, right? And right away, a hacker will hack. If this hacker is now an experienced professional or it's a kiddie hacker, depends on how much luck you have, either way. However, the problem is that in the time before you find it and you fix it, you are under the highest security risk, right? Now imagine the same thing about your proprietary code, about the code you are writing, you're developing. You could introduce a simple mistake like an SQL injection. It's really simple to do this, just losing a little bit of the focus how you should develop your code, and you could already introduce an SQL injection. Before this vulnerability will be discovered, it will maybe take days, months, or years again. However, the problem is that for an SQL injection, how to check for it, how to breach it, it's already on YouTube. You can check it, SQL injection, you will get explicit explanations what this is and how to misuse it on web pages or anywhere else. This means that hackers already know how to check for this for a company web page, for your portals, for anything that you might be even using. The problem now only is that when you find it and when you fix it, is a more delayed even than with open source components. This means that you are under a security breach, and only then you will find this vulnerability, not before, which puts you in a constant threat state. You are constantly under a threat of using vulnerable software if you do not check for those vulnerabilities. So let me make an example. Let's look at the coding, building, and testing phase of your development system. If we just take those three steps and think about what I said before, put security into each and every step of your process. Let's just take those three. Now, when I'm coding, when I'm building the project with my build managers, or when I'm testing my application. Wouldn't it be great that I would have a tool that would tell me, hey, there is something wrong during those 3 times? And then now imagine that I release this out of testing, deploy it, and then if I only focused on security in the coding phase, then the hacker might be the one that has found a vulnerability that I missed, that I released through my process and is now in the hands of the world and also the hackers. So the coding threat I'm talking about, as I already mentioned before, is here. As I said, software is more complex than ever, right? And the complexity will not go down, it will just go up, right? More programming languages, more package managers, more of everything, more connections, more drivers, more hardware. In this code that I just showed you, I made a simple mistake of introducing a simple SQL injection. Now, while I was coding, if I would have the right tool, it would tell me right away at that moment in an IDE, hey, watch out, here you introduced a SQL injection, repair it. I could repair this vulnerability while I code, and this vulnerability would not be released. Now think about the build time. In build time, I'm just building together what the developer said, and I'm using the packages that he told me to build, right? Now, the biggest threat in the build time for me would be, for example, imagine packages or open source components that are built into my application. So I can have several components. The developers under you that already took an NPM project once in their hands know that it could easily go into the hundreds or thousands of components that are then pulled into my project as not direct dependencies, but transitive dependencies to my project's project and so on, right? So I could end up with components that I don't even know that I am using. And what if one of those components is now vulnerable? This means that I have introduced a vulnerability into my application. So I'm releasing now a vulnerable open source component in my application that could ruin my reputation, my company's reputation. However, if I would use SCA tools, I would immediately know that, hey, watch out, here you have security risks with this open source component, and I could handle those problems again during a simple step in the CI, an automated step that would tell me, hey, watch out, here you have the problems. The next point is then, again, the testing phase, right? However, testers are not always developers, right? We are testing for functional tests. We are testing if I can log in, if all the functionalities work. I click around in the UI. What if I would use tools that would, during my functional testing, already tell me, hey, watch out, here you have a security risk. Watch out here, here is an SQL injection that was inserted in. Wouldn't it be great if you could go back to your developer and say, here is an SQL injection. Please check this part of the code. I believe there is something wrong. And before even going into the release process, the developer, the build manager, or the tester could already contribute to the whole security state of your application. So don't put everything on the developer. It has to be in your whole process. The developer will handle anything that you throw at him. However, he needs some help to find those vulnerabilities and to know how to fix them. And those tools at the correct time can help him to do what is needed. However, don't depend on the point of one tool does it all, where you would put source code in and the perfect software would come out. There is no red button. There is no software that can tell you everything at the end. There is no such thing, unfortunately. Maybe there will be somewhere in the future one of those, but there is none. Therefore, you need to really know what you need to use, which AST tool to use at which part of the development cycle. You need to maybe use the consolidation tools that will tell, okay, this is the results of your SAST, SCA, IST, tooling, and those are the points that you have to focus on. So those result consolidation and triaging tools are something that you can then take in order to even more increase your velocity, help you with triaging what's important. And don't forget about education, which is a really important part of everybody's work life. The developers also need to know what secure coding means. And this doesn't mean that they don't care. It's just that it's not a part of their daily work to watch out for this. But if you educate them, they will know more where to watch out. However, as we know, we are always under problems with resources. Therefore, take managed services. Take somebody who can help you. Take somebody who can also introduce those tools into your DevOps environment that can help you to make this seamlessly introduced, because just taking a tool and buying it and installing it doesn't mean that you have implemented the processes to run this tool effectively. So in this, I would like to leave you with this point on, right? I was just talking about the coding, building, and testing time. And already if you spread your whole security focus on those 3 steps only and introduce right tools for each step, you can already help everybody to have more velocity while they're working. And with this, you're creating not just a DevOps environment, but a DevSecOps environment where you're implementing security into every step of your development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Boris. Really, really cool talk. I really liked it a lot. Also, one of my colleagues who's also right now here also told me that he really liked your talk so far. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Like always getting feedback from different angles. So that's perfect. So has someone a question for Boris? Just use the chat or use your hand. You can raise it and we will give you the opportunity to speak, or you can also use the Q&A functionality. Meanwhile, I got a question actually. Boris, you also told us about the that you during the Corona crisis you had you tested through a lot of apps which are in the App Store. For example, I mean, in my view, what I've seen so far, the most companies will care about security if they have to from a
Correct.
law perspective. Before that, it's like, okay, let's make a feature out of it. And then if you look at CRM systems, you're paying, for example, more to have two-factor authentication, where I think like, okay, like it's basic actually. So like in 2021, it's a web application that should have two-factor authentication already in it. I shouldn't have to pay more actually. It's like, it should be safe. I don't buy a car which is not safe. So anyway, would you say, for example, if you say the Play Store, would it be making more sense if the Play Store said, okay, we're having basic security checks. Hey, your apps, like there would be like some kind of supplier for customers. And actually, I mean, the App Store is like the main go-to place to get new applications. Would you say, okay, it's in their responsibility also to enhance security and say, we won't publish your app if it's not has basic security standards like OWASP top 10 shouldn't be.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, and I discuss it a lot with many people, many times, because the problem is that so we are now in the state where we are discussing if you come to a hotel and you take a hotel room, if you should pay for running water, or if you come to a hotel and you would pay for warm water, right? Or then if I take us a little bit more to today's day, would you go into a hotel where you have to pay internet connection, right? So for me, security is not an extra feature. It's nice that some companies can today make commercials out of this, right? With Apple saying we are there to secure your privacy, right? It's nice that they say this, but my opinion is that it's every provider's responsibility to provide us with good software. This means that the company or the individual that is creating software needs to take care that in his best way, he makes sure that this software he puts somewhere is secure. So that's already the first point that we would need to ensure, that there would be a standard that would say this needs to be the minimum requirements to make sure that this software can be released in the world. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if I'm a provider, and this doesn't mean now a Google Play Store or something like this, right? Google Play Store, Apple Store, and others try already to somehow tie in a little bit more security with even saying how you can release a software, what your development practice should be, and such things. However, we have a lot of shoulds. And then if I now develop a software that is looking really nice today, and then send you an APT 2 days later, it's again a security hole that Google cannot check, right? So from that perspective, it's again a problem what they should check. However, I'm also more talking about the retailers that are selling cameras that don't even have the minimum requirements needed in order for being presented in the European state of privacy law and such things, right? Where the default username is admin and such things, right? Those should not happen, that they are even being sold in our markets, right? So this is already this responsibility of the provider of software, right? And I'm not, again, talking about software as software, but everything is software today.
Yeah.
My watch is software today, right? So from that perspective, we need to make a standard also here, what can be sold and what not. And the third part is, when I'm buying something, I need to make sure that I show a little bit more interest what I'm buying, right? If my only point is I don't want to spend much money, then okay, then you give up on everything, right? Security costs money for the developers, for the companies, for everybody. It costs money. If I now want a camera where I can log into the camera that somebody is using thousands of kilometers away, then be my guest, pay 20K and secure your whole company with it, right? If you want a real camera that has real security protocols, handles the communication transfer, handles everything, then you will pay also a little bit more. But this doesn't mean that it will be a fortune. Therefore, every company should also take care at the buying side that they are buying respectful software, that they are buying software or hardware that they know the company they bought it from is taking care about maintaining it, releasing patches, and so on. Because if not, you cannot help yourself, right? And this is the whole software chain, right? It's from the beginning to the end. And there has to be a main focus on security, because if this chain will not have this focus, then we will always stay in this sense. And as you know, on May 12th, the American president released an executive order on software development. And I can tell you it's already striking some waves. Because if this is now in the US, also European companies that are working with US companies and vice versa are now talking about, okay, we have to check what is in the software, how we can present the reports, what is in there, how we are handling security, and so on. And it's going there. However, if you ask me, it should go there already 12, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. But also, yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. I got a few follow-up questions, but
Sure.
I would say the attendees should come first. Alexander was the first guy who raised the hand, so I will just allow him to speak and hear what Alexander has to say. Hey, Alexander, you have to unmute yourself, and then you can already ask a question.
Hello, Nicholas. Hello, Boris. Hello to everyone. Yeah, my question is that I work as developer, and I saw today really useful approaches and really useful softwares how we can secure our code. But my question is, can we implement every day in development team? Can we do that in development team, or other teams should do that, and we should cooperate with them, or how we can implement that?
Yeah, a really good question. So it depends all on the point how your development is, of course, structured, right? If you are a small startup where you have 3 developers and one of them is a CEO, then of course the whole development cycle of that or DevOps is of course a little bit more on hand, right? And then you are all everything, right? I was in a startup, I was everything from a developer to a researcher to a CTO and also the cleaning lady. So, you know, it goes like this. If a small team is there, then you of course have to find a way around how to implement those tools, and everybody is using the same tools to find problems in their code. However, as development teams grow, even in development teams, you have different, let's say it like this, obligations, right? Developers, build managers, testers, and so on. And therefore, those tools can then be easily also given to different people, so that not only one part of the organization has to keep up with those, but the whole task and the responsibility is then also spread around to several different parts of your development process. And this is what I wanted to show today, that it's not only on the developer shoulders, but also the testers can do their own way of checking for vulnerabilities. Many times I get the feedback that where is the security team, right? They should check for everything. They should care for security the most and tell us. So, but if you have 100 developers and 5 security guys, where will be the bottleneck? So there's the problem then again, that you will have 5 security guys that will try to check every vulnerability. Then they will tell you, you have the CVE here, and then the developer again puts it into his backlog, and it will be handled somewhere in 1, 2, 3 weeks, maybe 1 month, maybe next quarter. Depends on how the project manager or product manager will decide when this will be fixed. And this is why I'm saying, if you have the correct tools, for example, integrated SaaS in your development environment, then you can handle security vulnerabilities at the moment when you're written it, and you can fix it based on the required fix that the tool already recommended, right? So you don't have SQL injection and such minimum things that usually happen to developers, right? And it's not developers' fault. It's just that I just need to make a login, and I just mistakenly put in the logging check so that somebody can make a SQL injection, right? But there are other things that you might not be so watchful for. So such an integration into your IDE is helpful for the developer. However, SCA having on your machine is not so helpful. Therefore, it's more working on the CI platform. And there, the build manager or the security analyst would make more sense to look at this results and tell you, hey, watch out, here you have a component downloaded from Maven version 1.4.6. Why don't you use the 1.4.7 version of this component, and you don't have the vulnerability anymore? So from that perspective, again, an easy fix, but you have another team that can tell you the resolution, and you can fix it in a moment, right? So that's the point. Having the right tool at the right moment can make your daily life easier and with less security problems.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Can I ask just one more question, or okay.
Sure.
Does that mean that these tools can find which part of the software exactly have vulnerabilities, or so can security team or test team tell us, okay, in this class, in this
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So you have direct points on where this vulnerability happened, how it went through the chain of calls and everything. So you can really see how the vulnerability has been integrated or how it's impacting the end product.
Really interesting. Thank you very much.
I also provided some links in the chat. We have, since we have the Sec for Dev conference and SPA and regular meetups, you can always check also a few videos. Maybe there are a few tricks and tips also for you to solve the one or the other problem. We have actually a few questions and also another hand risen. I would just glance over the one chat question. It's about the article actually I read as well. Google is stating that every 3 years they are rewriting their whole software for different applications. So to try to keep it in good shape and try to keep it of state of the art. Yeah, so that also new people know about the software. So there's no legacy code actually. So that's like actually I like the approach very much. Because, so, but what is your opinion about it, about this approach?
Yeah, so it makes sense because it gets rid of technical depth, right? For me, the biggest problem of software development today is this technical depth, right? We are still focused on this development that we did, and now we have this what we did, and now we took in a few open source components that should solve our life. However, we still have the problems of before with the new problems that we have today. Now we cannot move to the newer software components because we are totally bound into those old components and so on. So this whole problem continues ongoing until somebody makes a clean cut and says, okay, stop now, from here on, rewrite this part and make it clean. However, I understand that not every company is Google or Alphabet that could just throw a few million every 3 years and say rewrite everything. So I also understand that this is not possible for every company. However, having this in mind, that there is technical depth and that it needs to be solved, is something that everybody has to keep in their mind.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And as you said, it's really expensive. I mean, basically, you need the same amount of developers you're having right now, copy them, double them up, so you can keep up the application you're having right now to write a new application.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, it's quite costly. So I try to give it in the right order, the questions. We still have a few. Do you have it? Do you need to leave, Boris, or have you got still a few minutes?
No,
so
I have a few minutes and I see a raised hand also.
As well, yeah. We can also take Andreas, but I just wanted to go through the right chronologic steps. No, it's I try, maybe I also saw it, but Thomas also used the Q&A actually. So if you say that the use of such tools should be the minimum requirement, doesn't it lead to software development companies setting for the minimum? How do you make people aware that such tools only provide a baseline and that you shouldn't fall for false sense of security?
Okay. So if the tools are providing only the minimum,
Yeah.
or the software is provided with minimum security awareness, you
Yes.
mean?
So like the tools are giving just like he says that they giving just a minimum requirement of security, those tools. And he means that wouldn't that be also like lowering the bar for security actually? But Thomas
Ah,
has also raised the hand. We can also allow him to talk actually. Thomas, hi. You can unmute yourself. Perfect.
Yes, hello. Just to make it clear, I always get the impression that such tools give a false sense of security in a way that people think, now I have a tool, I use it, and now I'm fine. I'm relieved of everything else because the tool will find
I
all
see.
my vulnerabilities, and I already paid enough money for using the tool, so this is enough, and the minimum is enough. So they settle for the minimum. But actually, there are a lot of other opportunities to build in vulnerabilities which such a tool wouldn't find.
Yeah, that's true. So I agree with you, Thomas. There are possibilities how you can avoid, for example, finding things, or even I know that our tools are set with a high point of detail. So many times we get complaints that we are finding too much, which is then again a little bit hard to take, mostly because of the security depth that has been placed into the code for several years. And now if you present to the customer even 10,000s of security problems, I understand that they cannot handle those. So they are letting everything down. But here, I would say it like this: every good tool in the market, right? We are talking about good tools today, will show you at least the most problematic things. If you really want to go sure that you will find everything, then you use tools from Synopsys. But just to be now on the point, if you have a tool telling you those are your capabilities, this is a detailed report of your problems, you need to start solving them. Triaging is then the way to go about solving those problems. And as I said, also, the tools that help you with triaging and consolidation of those results into the right, let's say it like this way, so that you focus on the highest problems first and then work down, should be the case. However, you are right. Not everybody is then using this with the correct part. And this is why I said that somebody should set the bar high, say that those are the minimum requirements, and those minimum requirements should not be that you have to just take a tool and fix the vulnerabilities. The minimum requirements should be defined that the software that is released is not attackable by a normal means, that it doesn't have any vulnerabilities that can be found simply by running a binary scan, by vulnerabilities where a hacker, or let's say it like this, a white hat hacker, pen tester, cannot sit by the computer 5 minutes and infect 20 different softwares because he found one security vulnerability that they all share, right? So such things should not happen. So the bar, and there I have to excuse myself, I should mention this before, the bar should be set really high so that this minimum requirement is already taking care of your security, my security, the company security, everybody who is using that software. And that would be then the good point, right? That we would have really a security standard that would say that all security problems have to disappear, and then this is a secure software. It's like in the food industry, right? The minimum bar is that people don't die or get sick when they're eating their food. It should be the same in software. It should be the standard that if I use software, that I should feel safe, not that I have to change my passwords every week because another service provider has been hacked, right?
I mean, like it's well, in my opinion, already the fact that the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities are like didn't change. I think like not cross-site script
Cross-site
forgery.
scripting,
Yeah, but also cross-site script forgery was like the only one which moved, I think. And the last 10 years it didn't change. So the same vulnerabilities over the last 10 years. Still, the ranking, I think, has switched a little bit, but still it's like the same vulnerabilities over 10 years. Nothing changed. Still SQL injection, still on top of it. I mean,
yeah.
Ridiculous, actually.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I was sorry to interrupt you, but I was really surprised last time. I sometimes make comments for news articles, right? And there I was surprised that I was asked to give a comment about an SQL injection, and then I was now trying to figure out, is this article about something historical? Should I explain what this is, right? Or are we talking about an attack that happened now, right? In these days where SQL injection should not be even possible to write into the code, right? So those are the points where I get a little bit weary, where I get a little bit so for example, I get a bad feeling every time when I install a software because I don't know how I should protect it, right? And it should not be in my head, but it's still in my head if this is now good or bad or something. So we need to make sure that everybody understands this and that this is really like, I like always the example of food industry, right? You would consume only what's safe and not what's not safe, right?
Okay. So Thomas, I hope we could answer your question. Yes.
Yeah, fine. I just wanted to mention that I sometimes I get the impression that let's say the tool vendors promote their software in a way that gives the impression that if you use this tool, you're perfectly secure, and it should be a little bit more wary in the interest of your customers.
That's true. This is why we do also, let's say it like this, lengthy checks with our customers so that we don't sell you a cat in the bag, but you can check what we are giving you. And this is also one recommendation I would have for everybody listening in. Before you buy a tool, marketing materials are great. They have great design. They are really good. I don't
Very
have
flashy.
this knowledge. This is why my presentation also looked like it looked. However, marketing is always good at presenting stuff. But if you want to get a good feel of tools, what it can do, how detailed it is, and where it can help, always take your time, evaluate the tool, make use cases why you need this tool, where it should help you, and then decide how you want to test it. We have also guided POCs, we call them, where we help the customer also with exploring the tool. So we, for example, don't hand in a manual and say, see you in 1 month. So from that perspective, I agree with you. There are some that are selling this only over a online portal, but in our case, we at least have guided POC so that you can also explore what you're buying.
That's also like one of the things which you mentioned in your presentation was firstly also education. So to give developers also the knowledge to write secure code. So I think that's also one of the very important issues, as well as, for example, also to give customers, for example, the knowledge how to decide if a tool or a software or IoT device or whatever is secure. How can I rate it actually? I mean, like I won't buy like a software where I have to read through like such a magazine just to find somewhere the security guidelines so I know what to do and if it's safe. So awareness, education, I think, is one of the primers actually.
Correct.
I even thought about like having like a driver's license. Maybe you should bring something like that for like, I mean, maybe it's a little bit too much, but like, okay, you don't click on a PDF which is sent to you by a Saudi prince who offers you 10 million bucks or something if you give him 1,000 euro. So
Yeah, true.
like, yeah, but anyway, so no, but I'm with you. I mean, like, tools are there to easy life, and it always depends on where you have your preferences.
Correct.
And, how you want to approach this, the different things. But I think there's no 100% security.
No.
As a security consultant, as you are, that's like the first thing everybody says. There's no 100% security.
Correct.
There.
So I come from the anti-malware security space. There I was working for many years, and even there, where we were selling security as such, we could not say that there is 100% security, because there is not, right? There are predictive systems that can maybe think about a way how to how a malware should behave, or there are today predictive systems in DAST or EAST solutions that are predicting how a hacker could misuse a certain way in your application to show you then the vulnerabilities it could exploit. However, this is again not 100% one thing that could happen, right? There still could be a hacker out there that will find another way that you could not think of. And that's how security goes. This is why it's interesting always, right?
I'm with you, yeah, totally. Thomas, I hope we could answer your question. We will move on to Andreas, because already I think his arm is already tired from holding up so long. So thank you, Thomas, for your question. If you have another question, you can raise your hand always, anytime. Perfect. So now to Andreas. Andreas, hi, welcome to SPA Security Meetup. You're on the line. How can we help you?
Hi, thanks for taking me. So my virtual is not getting tired. So I totally agree with the seemingly counterintuitive statement that more tools can help, although they make your software development.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Andreas. It was just a click away.
Okay, so I was just agreeing. I try to keep it short. So more tools definitely can help, but they also create more and more alerts. They create more information, and I was lucky to start with a new project last month, and I put in all the linters and all the scanners and turned them up to 11. And it's really hard, even for a new project, as it was shown, I think, on the Sec4Dev 2020. How many vulnerabilities are in a new node project? Yeah. It's hard to keep up.
That's true.
But if you add tools to an existing project where you haven't considered everything from the start, it can create a backlog that will keep you busy for a year. So my question would be, how do you not drown in the noise, and how can you focus on the regex that gets you hacked and not the regex in your build system? Or
yeah, that is really a good question, because this is actually the point that every customer of us also comes to, right? They buy in a tool because they want to solve their security issues, and then they end up with tens, thousands of security issues that were there because, as I said before, technical depth, right? You have it if you want it or not, right? As I saw yesterday, printer drivers from I don't know how many years ago now were found vulnerable, and everybody is looking for a patch for those laser printers that are still in life, right? So you can never be sure that you will be without vulnerabilities and that a tool will not show you thousands of vulnerabilities. And this is what we also recognize really early, right? Synopsys, for example, if you search for Synopsys with the Y on online, it will show you that we are a chip manufacturer, right? And as a chip manufacturer, and also providing digital tools to create virtual environments where you can test those chips before you make them. We were solving integrity problems on chip design, right? And then at one moment, our CEO said, if we are already solving the integrity of the chips, we also need to have a way how to solve the integrity of the software running on those chips, right? So there the mission began to collect the tools that we could give customers then to assess their problems in the software, and then also help them to resolve them. And as you maybe remember the slide where I showed tools and then the consolidation tools, this all great. You have tools. However, you need education to understand how those tools help you, how those vulnerabilities are impacting, how you can solve them. And there comes the point of the managed services, that we also can help you to get this in order. So we have also experts that can come help you to set up a plan how to solve this, how to resolve this, help you to also reorganize your development teams in order to have security experts in your teams, educate them so that they can educate others and everything. So we help you with our resources also in your solving the mystery of those tens, thousands of vulnerabilities, because we know that everybody will come to the point where he will see vulnerabilities like this, and then the only way is either to go the Google way and throw everything through the window and start anew. But as you said, even if you started new, you will see problems and you have to solve them, and you have to come to the point zero with vulnerabilities, right? Or at least as far as possible into that this vulnerability solving then in a daily task becomes easier and more handleable. Does this answer the
Yeah, I
question?
think this answers the question. So it's you either buy or try to grow the expertise required to interpret the results of your tools and
correct. In
make
every
it part
case,
of the process.
correct. In every case, you will have to grow the expertise. Buying a tool is not helping you,
No, I
right?
meant buying the expertise by buying consultants and,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
such.
yeah. So that would help, yeah, to understand also the tool. Why I mentioned this now is that many companies buy the tool, and as I said, they just then throw it to the developers and say, work.
Yeah.
And no expectations, no anything. The developers don't know what to do with this. Then there are it's hard for the developers then to cope with this situation, and then they hate those tools and they don't want to use them, and then you're at the same situation as you were before, right? The most productive way is to already at the beginning acknowledge that there will be problems, implementing this in, taking experts into use that will help you implement this. We even have the service where you don't even have to use the tool. We will use the tool, we will give you results, we will tell you what to fix first, how to fix it. So you don't have to even use the tool for 1, 2, 3 years. And in the meanwhile, we will teach you how to use the tools and integrate into your processes so that your development cycle is not impacted. And we will help you to come to the green Zweig, as we say in German, to the green branch, so that you can then use your tool without problems.
But I mean, like, I'm also at some point also with Andreas to have only like I won't bet the card only on a tool. In my view, for example, what a really good approach is, especially when you have a new software project or a new product, for example, to talk with someone about the architecture, because that's are a few things, for example, which can't be solved by tools, as well as also if you have inherent design issues, for example. Those are a few things which can break your neck anyway, and you can solve already a lot of things if you talk with someone who has security knowledge, talk about the architectures. And sometimes, I mean, you can always write clean code with different software languages which are out there, but there are some software frameworks, for example, who have automated sanitation, for example, who work with already. So you can scrub already a lot of the issues away if you
Correct.
just take your time, and then it's again education. It's again gathering knowledge, gathering information. Maybe look at the OWASP homepage. Also get some insights there, which is what I really much recommend the whole OWASP community actually. And also like talks from you, Boris, or also talks from us or from other experts. There are a lot of communities which you can use, and such tools are always, I think, something which can help, but it's sure you have to invest time as well in any tool you're getting. If
Correct.
at the first time probably you introduced Excel to companies, you also had to educate the people to work with it. So every tool also has upsides, downsides, but you have to decide for yourself in which direction you want to go. So I think we handled like all the questions. I think was very, very cool that so many questions were out there. Andreas, if you have something else to say, you can jump in, or are you satisfied? Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Perfect. So Boris, thanks again for a nice talk. It was really cool. I hope we see each other again. Stay in contact. Maybe you want also, maybe you come to the Sec4Dev. That would be great also for you, the other attendees who are still here. We would love to see you at the Sec4Dev next year. Just mark it on a calendar. Support us to make software more secure and to educate everybody else together and have fun with it. So Boris, hope to see you soon. Thanks all for attending. Take care, stay safe, and we see each other soon. And I will share with you the YouTube link later, Boris, so during the next weeks, and then you can say no, you don't share it, or yes, you share it.
Cool.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks all together. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.